Welcome back to Dazzy Cars. Today, we're stepping into a world where physics bends, sound becomes a weapon, and engineering transforms into something almost mythological. A world where a single machine has been feared, worshipped, debated, underestimated, and ultimately crowned as one of the most dominant performance monsters ever unleashed onto American asphalt. I'm talking about the Nissan GT-R Nismo, the sharpened fang of Godzilla. The final, most vicious evolution of a car that has terrorized supercars for over a decade and walked away without a scratch. And before we dive into this beast, let me remind you, if you love machines that punch harder than their price tag, hit that subscribe button like you're dropping the GT-R into launch control on a warm night with the road stretched wide open. Trust me, your thumb's faster than a dual clutch gearbox prove it. Now, let's talk about the exterior, because the GT-R Nismo doesn't just look aggressive, it looks like it's hunting. Every crease, every vent, every carbon fiber blade has purpose seared into it. Up front, the aerodynamic redesign brings a wider grille, massive air intakes, and a carbon fiber bumper that slices wind with violent efficiency. The headlights sit sharp and narrow, like the glare of a creature that knows it's faster than anything else in its territory. The carbon hood carries its signature heat extractors, letting the engine breathe like a dragon exhaling smoke between battles. Walk along the side and the silhouette is unmistakable: tall greenhouse, brutal stance, muscular haunches, and those familiar cuts in the bodywork that look like scars earned in victory. Carbon fiber side skirts keep the car planted at insane speeds, while Nismo branded wheels sit wrapped in ultra-grippy Dunlops designed specifically to withstand the torture this car dishes out. Swing around back and it hits you all at once, the iconic quad-circle taillights glowing like four red eyes staring through the night, the giant carbon fiber wing towering like the spoiler on a GT race car, and that aggressive diffuser sucking the car into the road. The GT-R Nismo looks like pure aggression sculpted into metal, not elegant, not delicate, not pretty. It is powerful, purposeful, predatory. Moving inside, the interior feels like a brutalist shrine to performance wrapped in Japanese precision. It's not the plush luxury of a German executive car. It's more like the cockpit of a weapon. You slide into racing-inspired Recaro seats that clamp around you like they were molded for your spine. The red accents the stitching, the Nismo logo, the leather inserts remind you that this isn't a regular GT-R. The steering wheel, Alcantara wrapped, thick, perfectly contoured, with a red center mark that screams, "Point me toward the next apex." The digital cluster is simple, direct, and unapologetically old school. The infotainment feels familiar, maybe even dated, but that's the charm. This car wasn't born to crush tech charts. It was born to crush lap times. Still, you get navigation, Bluetooth, a decent sound system, and enough modern touches to live with it every day. Visibility is surprisingly good. Comfort is better than you'd expect from a track-tuned monster. There's even space in the trunk for a weekend trip or enough camera gear to film your own run down a canyon road at dawn. The cabin blends race car intention with real-world usability, a balance very few supercars ever get right. But now we must talk about the engine, the heart, the legend, the hand-built soul of this machine. The GT-R Nismo carries a 3.8-litre twin-turbo V6 that pumps out 600 horsepower and 481 pound-feet of torque, each engine assembled by a single Takumi master craftsman whose signature is literally stamped onto the block. That's not marketing, that's tradition, that's pride. Fire it up and the idle sounds mechanical, raw, almost alive. The turbos spool like angry hornets when you breathe on the throttle, and when you hit that accelerator, the GT-R Nismo doesn't just launch, it detonates. The all-wheel drive system digs into the pavement with claws made of software and engineering. The dual clutch gearbox throws gears at the engine like it's feeding a wild animal. You feel the shove in your chest. You feel your stomach drop. You feel the car blast through speed in a way that seems unfair to the rear around it. The GT-R Nismo accelerates like it has no drag, no weight, no fear. And the sound, that hard-edged snarl mixed with turbo surge, creates a soundtrack that feels mechanical, violent, and unmistakably Japanese. Handling? Handling is where the GT-R Nismo earns respect from even its loudest critics. This car defies expectations. It is heavier than many supercars, taller, less sleek, less exotic looking, and yet it turns in with a sharpness that makes lighter Cars sweat. The front end bites with confidence thanks to Michelin and Dunlop custom tires that stick like racing slicks. The steering feels hydraulic in spirit, even though it's electric, tuned to give you feedback, road feel, and precision in equal measure. The dampers stiffen, the chassis braces, and suddenly the whole car feels like one solid piece of metal pivoting through corners. Torque vectoring works quietly in the background, shifting power left and right, pushing you through turns with unnatural grip. The GT-R doesn't glide. It doesn't dance. It attacks the road. Corners feel like challenges it wants to dominate. You exit each turn faster than you entered, and the car barely breaks a sweat. On the track, it becomes something unreal, a weapon too sharp to be fair. On the street, it feels controlled, confident, stable, and surprisingly livable. Nissan didn't build a car. They built momentum incarnate. Now let's touch on safety, because the GT-R Nismo may be violent in performance, but it's still built with responsibility in mind. You get stability control, traction control, ABS, multiple airbags, advanced chassis rigidity, and one of the most capable AWD systems ever engineered into a road car. It's not overloaded with driver assist tech. This isn't a lane keep, autopilot kind of machine. This is a driver's car. You take responsibility. You take control. That's the agreement. Pricing? Well, the Nismo is the top dog, so it comes with a bite. It lands around $210,000 depending on options, color, and dealer markup. But what you're paying for is not just speed, you're paying for heritage, for craftsmanship, for a driving experience you couldn't reproduce with a laptop and a few motors. You're buying a legend in its final, most sharp and formed. As the sun sets on the GT-R Nismo, there's an emotional weight that settles in. This car is more than horsepower and carbon fiber. It represents a philosophy, a belief in mechanical connection, in driver-first engineering, in the idea that passion can guide design just as much as data. When you park it after a hard drive, you don't just look back at it. You feel something. You feel respect. You feel nostalgia. You feel adrenaline still buzzing in your fingertips. And maybe, deep down, you feel a little sadness knowing cars like this are fading, not because they're no longer great, but because the world is changing. But if this is the last chapter of Godzilla as we know it, then what a glorious final. Roar. And before we wrap up, if you want to continue this journey of